I think every lesson have been describing it to Tiffany. It's like going to the museum when you're not like maybe a very young child at a museum, but you appreciate what you're looking at, and then you're walking through a museum and being in awe and in wonder. And I think when you see the cervical, well, the whole spine that way, when you find a different angle to into it, and you realize that this is something from evolution, right? Like the shape, it's so strange. It's like an alien, right? That you can make a lot of sci-fi fantasy movies just based on the weirdness of the vertebrae of each bone, in fact. And then when you start thinking that there's a function, it evolved over so many millions of years, to come to that shape. There must have been a certain purpose. There's an affordance to that. And I think the small movements become really, really matter, because each degree of movement, it in sorry, it involves, it implicates the strange shapes of these bones to interact with one another. And I think it's really through small. I'm going to print a t-shirt. Small doesn't mean unimportant. And I think that it's so easy to equate those two together, but it's not synonymous. Small is not unimportant. And do you feel that there's a groundedness, that this is very much a lesson about, or anything with the neck is about balance and stability as well, right? Because of these fine movements of the neck, we're able to shift without just toppling over. So there's a lot of small, important adjustments in the neck that afford the many directions and degrees of movement that give us one flow. And if you haven't heard me say before, I love referring back to this principle in Tai Chi, which is Yat Dong Ba Dong in Cantonese, which means one move, 100 moves, which also implies that there are thousands, millions of small movements in each movement. Because imagine the ocean, if you have like one molecule that's just like, no, I'm not going to be a part of it, I'm not going to move. There's no wave that happens, right? So all the molecules, all the different parts, if they each shift a bit, then it creates the smoothness in that big picture. So one movement, 100 moves. Small movements don't mean unimportant movements. Yeah. If you're making a building, and there's just one brick or something that's slightly off, that makes it a bit more precarious for the overall structure. So I often go back to that image. In Malmö in Sweden, where I lived before, there's a very famous building called the Turning Torso. So it's like a spine that's just turning, and it's very iconic. And I'm just thinking, like, it's just so beautiful to see that within me, and to see us in that as well. Again, everything is important, and therefore that's why I bring the idea of beauty into this as well. So it's not just beautiful being on the cover of Vogue, but how beautiful are we that we are a beautiful design, right? So exquisitely engineered. And what we're doing here is understanding how to use that better.